The opinions and views expressed in this video belong solely to the individuals appearing in it and do not necessarily represent the opinions and views of the organizations or platforms named. Nothing herein is to be construed as legal or financial advice and does not establish a professional relationship between the viewer or listener and the individuals in the video. Viewers and listeners are responsible for any consequences that result from following the advice herein. The following is intended for entertainment purposes only and may contain content that is not suitable for all viewers. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Up Late Real Estate Podcast, your source for the news, deals, and data that might just inspire your next big move. These are the stories of the people who shape the cities and towns we love. The Up Late Real Estate Podcast. When the city sleeps, the market never stops moving. And we're just going to do one take.
I'm good with that. We'll do it live.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Hey everyone, I'm here with Lorena Rivas with Rivas Associates. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Lorena, why don't you tell everybody how we know each other?
Well, I know Jeremy because my law firm needed a bigger space. We were outgrowing our space that we were renting. Lovely space in the Kendall Whittier neighborhood here in Tulsa, if you're aware of the area. But we were overflowing, so I need a bigger space. And so it was either renting a bigger space, but Jeremy helped me purchase my building. And it's a much bigger space. And then you later helped me purchase a house. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it looks great, and your building looks great, by the way.
It is amazing. It was already
a lot of work into it.
Yeah, it was already a pretty good building, and then once we did some changes, painting the outside and doing some renovations inside, it turned out even greater. And we're still doing some changes. Like this year is my renovation in the bathrooms is what we're going to do this year. But just trying to elevate it, but at the same time, not all at the same time. You can't do it because, well, it costs money. So, but we're getting there, and it still looks great, and it's at a great location. Just easy to find right off the interstate. So
go ahead and why don't you tell everyone what you do?
Yeah, so I am an immigration lawyer. So I have an immigration law firm, and what we help is people who don't have status, don't have lawful, papers, so to say, who are here in the United States, become lawful, become legal, or we help immigrants migrate lawfully to the United States. But the grand majority of our clients are already here in the United States. They're undocumented. That's the technical term. Some people would call them illegal. That's not the term I like to use. But they're undocumented. They're trying to get status. They're trying to either get like their green card, their lawful permanent residence, or become a U.S. citizen, or help a family member do that. So, or sometimes also fight deportation proceedings. So like deportation court, so they don't get deported from the country. So that is what we do.
Can you give everyone just kind of a pretty clear picture right now of what's really happening in the U.S. right now as far as just the current status of immigration, maybe some of the last challenges over the last 4 to 8 years, and now how you foresee things kind of changing in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so just generally, there's a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment going on, which has really affected our talk about immigration. And instead of making it a productive talk where we try to solve the problems that are happening with immigration, it just becomes very much about this person or who do we kick out of the country. But what has kind of led to all this, besides just maybe feeding on some fears or trying to do some fear mongering or scapegoating, is that we do have a broken immigration system. It is broken. It hasn't been major legislation with it for more than 20 years, I think maybe 2001. And while 2001 doesn't seem that far away, it really is a long time. And our Congress, who creates the immigration laws, hasn't really been able to come up with a solution that really addresses the present day concerns. The present day concerns are like, we still need workers. We still rely heavily on immigrant workers to do everyday jobs and do very high techy jobs or high skilled jobs. But every day, you guys everybody sees it. There's immigrants out there, and some of them are lawful, some of them are unlawful, but whatever it is, there is a need for it. And while we do have, a large population of U.S. citizen or lawful residents here in the United States who are unemployed, the fact of the matter is they're not going to take those jobs that many immigrants have. So there is just not been a solution created by Congress for multiple years. George W. Bush tried to do something. Obama tried to do something. Biden has tried to do something. Congress is either bickering about one thing and they just can't come to a good working immigration solution, comprehensive immigration reform. So that's a big thing is. And then the second thing is just, globally, just there is so much turmoil going on, whether that's in the Middle East with Palestine, Israel, and just in general, all over there, or Ukraine, or in Central and South America with like Venezuela, or just the living conditions in Central America being poor. And, as much as it sucks, it's kind of like, wow, they all want to come to the United States because we are such an amazing country. We are such a wonderful country that has always been a beacon of hope and a refuge for immigrants. I mean, that's what the Statue of Liberty says. That's what we were built. We were built by immigrants. So they want to come.
Give me your tired, your poor, and your huddled masses. Right?
Exactly. So yeah, they want to come to the United States, but also there's a need here because they do need these workers. And so we do have a large number of people coming to the United States. And, people have always tried to come to the United States and always have tried to come illegally to the United States. I mean, I'm a product of that. My parents came over here illegally, but thanks to amnesty passed by President Reagan, they were able to gain lawful permanent residence and be legal here in the United States. So they came over here legally. I was born here in the United States. That's the only difference between me and a lot of people is I was born here. But
you've become a very high-functioning member of society. You're giving back to the community.
Yeah. I mean, yes, high-functioning and definitely contributing to the community. I kind of feel it's like my calling, where it's like I have to give back to the community. Mm-hmm. I was lucky to be born here and for this country to welcome my family. But yeah, so there.
Can you give people a picture of what it's like for a typical someone who is, coming across the border? They're trying to make a better life for their family.
Yeah.
They may not be coming over here for any ill intent whatsoever, really just to make a better life for their family.
Yeah.
Give people a picture of what that process is like. What's it like, start to finish? Say someone's coming over the border, on the other side of Texas.
Yeah.
What's that like for them?
Well, I mean, they've probably already traveled a really long way to get here. From Venezuela, crossing through Central America and either through foot or through car or through train. So that journey is super treacherous, going through the jungles of maybe Guatemala, and just, it's facing a lot of trials to get there. And many times they do come, sometimes by themselves, but most of them are now a lot coming with family, with children, very young children. So it's not a safe journey. It's not an easy journey. By gosh, I don't think anybody would like to do that journey. As much as the United States is a promised land, if their home country was a little bit better, I'm sure they would want to stay there. That is their home. That's where they're leaving behind their livelihood, their life, and their family. But so they have to make this really hard journey, pay quite a bit of money to get here, several $1,000s to get a guide to guide them through the intricacies of navigating through these foreign countries in Mexico. And in Mexico, maybe a coyote is the smuggler who brings them across. But honestly, I don't even think a smuggler is doing what they're doing. Most of these people, they present themselves at the border. And at the border, they either are presenting themselves at the border asking for asylum, like literally walking across the bridge and saying, across the Rio Grande and saying, I'm here, I can't go back to my country, I fear for my life, or there's nothing there for me. Mm-hmm. And then they're either allowed to enter the United States through parole, what we call, to later then fight their deportation case, fight their asylum case in the immigration court system, or somebody's trying to cross illegally. A lot of them have the intention of actually being caught by the border agents, so then they could be processed accordingly and claim asylum, or crossing illegally, which requires walking a lot of days through the desert or through the mountains, or again, more treacherousness, and sometimes they risk being put in the hands of there's bad people, the smugglers, so that might have them in a house, kind of locked up and waiting for more funds from their family members. This is not a cheap cheap journey. We're talking about maybe around $10,000 to get here. So it's not easy. Now, during the Biden administration, they eliminated what's called the Remain in Mexico program. And the Remain in Mexico program was started by Trump. And it was like, if you're coming for asylum, you have to remain in Mexico and fight for it, which meant they were living in tents amongst the borders in Brownsville, in Laredo, they were in Juarez. They were just on the border, sometimes in tents, or sometimes there were some organizations, nonprofit organizations, that gave them some type of refuge. But they were living in these horrible conditions, waiting for their immigration court date to be able to present their case to an immigration judge. Mm-hmm. Horrible conditions. This wasn't just like a few days or a few weeks, sometimes months and months and months, because there is a lot of them, and we just don't have the systems built to process these types of cases or number of cases. So I'd be waiting there. And, you know, Trump is kind of smart, because a lot of these people kind of would get really discouraged. And so they just were like, you know what, might as well try going back, and because this is horrible living in here. We have no food, we have no running water, no bathrooms, it's freezing and stuff. So the Remain in Mexico program will probably be reinstituted by Trump when he enters office. But Biden took it away because it's very inhumane. It's very against the asylum procedures and the Hague Conventions agreements that were agreed to by all the countries about asylum laws and processes. So he took it away, and that's why there was a larger number of influx of people, but not because they were granted asylum or granted lawful status, but it was because we're giving them an opportunity to humanely fight for their asylum case. Now, asylum immigration law in the United States is not easy to win. It's really just based on some grounds, and it's a high burden. But everybody's entitled to try to apply and win their case of asylum.
So the Hispanic community in Tulsa, is there roughly 100,000 folks here? Correct?
I think so. I mean, I know the figures are probably not accurate because a lot of people just don't complete the census, and for fear, or just not, being more mobile and stuff. So, yeah.
So in the International District, we're talking East Tulsa, 21st and Garden, beautiful area.
Yeah.
Some of the best food in town. If mass deportations occur, number one, do you think mass deportations will occur? And if so, what sort of impact could that have on Tulsa?
Right. Well, one thing is we did have the first term of President Trump, and where there was a large deportation, but it wasn't like people being rounded up from the streets or people being picked up from their homes. It was people who were stopped for a traffic citation of no driver's license, who the local cop decided, I'm taking you to jail and I'm calling ICE on you. That's what it was. And at that time during the Trump administration, they would go process, immigration would process, ICE would process every single individual that was arrested, even though they maybe were not a criminal, had no criminal record. It was a non-violent offense, just a simple regulatory offense. They would pick them up. And sometimes these people would qualify for relief and be able to fight their case in court. Sometimes they didn't, and so they were deported. So there was a lot of that. Now, was it what I would say mass? I mean, it was a good amount. And so what I think, though, this term is going to be is I do believe we'll have some more of that. And that's where my concern is to my clients and to just my community is that, while some communities like Tulsa, it's where the mayor is gracious enough and kind enough to realize that, hey, his resources don't need to be spent on arresting people for nonviolent offenses. We do have other towns in our community.
You're talking about the new mayor, Mayor Monroe Nichols, right?
Yeah.
They've sort of reconfigured things in their approach to how they're going to deal with the community.
Yeah.
How do you see that affecting, in the positive sense, the community?
Well, to me, it's very reassuring, and I think it's reassuring for our community that if they are a mom who's going to go pick up their kids from school who doesn't have a driver's license, who maybe gets stopped for, going a couple of miles over the speed limit, but get they stopped, they don't have to fear of like, oh my gosh, they're taking me in. It's more like, okay, I just pay my traffic ticket. And here's the thing, like, most people of the immigrants don't want to be stopped for traffic citations, don't want to be arrested, but state of Oklahoma, just like a lot of states, don't give driver's license for undocumented people. So they kind of set them up to fail, and they get picked up and arrested. And this happens usually, and here in the Tulsa area, in the small communities, Bixby, Broken Arrow, they're willing to do that. They're okay doing those things, which is really sad because these are members of their community contributing. So I do see that being a focus. Now, the other focus was like, we're going to deport the criminals, and I'm thinking
That was going to be my question to you, because I guess sort of, and this is not ever a political podcast. We're discussing topics.
yeah,
Politics sort of latches onto these
Yeah.
different topics, but these are humans that we're talking about. We endeavor to make this
Yeah.
podcast a very human podcast.
Right.
And so we will talk about things that may or may not relate to politics, but the intent is not to side with one particular political party or another. We're just having a conversation. So with that being said, the Republicans, in effect, make the argument. We will be right back after this word from our sponsor. Hey, this is Jeremy with Detroit Property Group. We sell residential land and commercial property all across the state of Oklahoma. I want to tell you about a property that just came back to market. This property features nearly an entire mile of frontage along Interstate 40. It's 7480 Hornbeam Road. Nearly 80 acres of land prime for farming and over 130 acres of woods, creeks, ponds, a reservoir, and prime hunting land. If you're interested in learning more about this property, please call or text 918-720-9010. Welcome back to the Up Late Real Estate Podcast. Republicans, they make the argument that we're not after the immigrants, we're after the criminals. So what would you say to that argument?
Listen, buddy, I would say to them, I'd be like, you're already doing that. If somebody gets arrested for something serious, they're already going into ICE custody and ICE hands. It's not like Biden's just letting them out, or anybody, any president. Throughout all the presidents, if somebody's been arrested, they've already been doing that. So by you claiming you're going to do it now, you're just doing what the other presidents, including the Democratic presidents, have already been doing. So to me, and Governor Kevin Stitt also released something, the governor of Oklahoma released, we're just going to help out with deporting the criminals. I'm like, that's already being done. You guys are trying to take credit for something that's already in place. And so, no, you're just going to deport criminals? No, you're not. You're fear-mongering to deport regular people. And if you call somebody who violates for no driver's license, no insurance, or for speeding a criminal, my gosh, then you better start deporting a lot of us, because we all do some kind of those kind of things. So it's their focus on just criminals is not. If that's what they mean by mass deportation, then they're just going to do the exact same thing that's being done by all administrations. So no, I don't. That doesn't scare me. I'm like, fine, take them. Now, the people who are scaring and who I'm fearing that they will, it is not a criminal. And that was done during the first Trump administration. It was. I mean,
Did you see families torn apart?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I would be visiting.
Like you personally. These are your
personally,
clients.
Yeah. Personally, I would get called daily about my family member, my dad, my mom, our son was detained for a simple traffic citation, and now they're not releasing them. They're not giving them a bond to be released, or they're having to fight their case in immigration court while detained. And let me remind you, they are detained even though maybe they're nonviolent offenders. This is a civil offense. They're being detained with the rest of the criminals in local jails. So. This happened
for potentially weeks on end.
Oh, absolutely.
While they await some sort of
their immigration court proceedings, their court hearings. Yeah, it's months. It's a month's process. So a lot of.
So there could effectively be Hispanic mothers separated from their children in the local jails.
Absolutely.
In some
Absolutely.
sense, yeah.
There is. And it's months because of our court procedure takes time. And I realize you got to give some due process, but it's just a backlog or a huge number. And, the immigration court systems, the immigration judges don't want these type of cases. They don't want to be seeing people who are nonviolent offenders because they're already backlogged and they're just wasting time on their docket. But now they're going to have to address it. Now, that is something the immigration court is called the Executive Office of Immigration Review, EOIR. They're already having to reevaluate how they're going to do things. Immigration court is different. It's not like regular court. It's held in the executive branch. So in essence, the executive branch is the prosecutor as well as the immigration judges. So it's like, we're fighting the president, whoever term it is. And so there is without a doubt that the prosecution of immigrants, who is determined by the administration, will focus on deporting everybody, and so they'll take away what's called prosecutorial discretion. So in the past, just like in any court, like a district attorney has the discretion to decide whether they're going to prosecute somebody or not, or whether they're going to lower charges or negotiate. It's a lot of negotiating in regular courts. Well, that's what's been happening a little bit in Biden, which makes it more like a real court. But because sometimes it's like, this person has been here for such a long time. Maybe they don't meet the high standards to win a certain type of case and get status. But at the same time, we realize that they're part of this community and we don't want to separate families. So we'll just drop the immigration charges against them and let them remain here without papers, without status, but remain here because we want to focus more on the high priority cases, which is more on people who have more serious criminal offenses or maybe recent arrivals. But during the Trump administration, any trying to negotiate or try to reason, there is no reasoning. There's no reason, there is no compassion with the prosecutors. And that's their job. And I realize that's their job, so it's not necessarily them doing it, but at the same time, well, they're the ones carrying it out. So it is definitely affecting everyday families, everyday community members, your neighbors, those favorite employees that you see working at the restaurants. It definitely, will affect them. Have to really remain positive for the clients and realize that this is a country of immigrants, and there's a reason why it's a country of immigrants. It's because immigrants are resilient.
Well, I know it's a difficult process for a lot of folks. And what do you think the Trump administration and our governor State, what do you think that they could do some actual changes? Are you hopeful that they will do anything that will help this cause, or do you feel like it's just going to be an overwhelming no, just get everybody out and let's start over?
Well, one thing, it is kind of been a slight glimmer of hope. I don't want to give it too much credit, but it might, due to Elon Musk and his involvement in that, increase the number of skilled workers and be able to get what's called H-1B or H-1A visas, because there's only a limited number of these type of visas, so there's always a cap. This is where employers have a foreign worker that they would like to sponsor to work here in the United States, and they've already identified it. They've already also
Yeah, I have a client of mine. He works for an architecture firm on one of these visas as well. Yeah.
And so the employer already knows this person. The person already shows that they can do the work. The employer has also shown through job advertisements and recruitment that they cannot find a U.S. worker to do this job. So that's why they're having to sponsor this foreign worker. So they've shown all this, but unfortunately there is this limited number of visas available, and it always runs out the first day as it opens up the lottery system. And so hopefully the talks is that they will increase the number of visas available for worker visas. So I'm hopeful about that, and that would be great, and I think that would alleviate something, because a lot of our undocumented immigrants aren't necessarily the people who enter illegally. It's the people who enter legally with a work visa, student visa, or a tourist visa, and then just stay here. So it's not just the illegals, it's the people that you may like, oh, they came over on a visa and then just stayed. Those people, and if we can find a way to allow them to work here lawfully, work visa, or anybody apply for this, it would be great. The other thing I would love, and kind of speaking on the same grounds, is family members can petition for somebody. So if I was married, I could petition for, or if I'm a U.S. citizen, I can petition for my spouse, for my parents, for my children, and for my siblings. And for some people, like for your spouse and your children who are under 21, you can do the process and there's always a visa available. But if you have a child that's over 21, or for your siblings, there's a long wait. And for a U.S. citizen who's petitioning for their sibling to come into the United States lawfully or to get lawful status, it's about a 22-year wait if you're from Mexico. So because
22 years.
22 years. Wait. So even for people who are trying to come over here lawfully, waiting 22 years. I mean,
now this is based on hard data.
Hard data. Go look up the Visa Bulletin. Everybody can Google it. Look up Visa Bulletin, and you can pull up the January 2025, and it tells you that they are processing this category, which is F4 category of immigrant petitions for family members, siblings to siblings from Mexico, for people who petitioned for the sibling in 2001.
So the immigration system is absolutely broken.
Broken. And I'm like, focus on that. If you would just increase the number of visas available, those people in the backlog, a lot of people are already waiting for that. There is so many people who have a family member who has petitioned for them, but they're just waiting on their priority date to become current. So
to give people perspective, Kara and I lived in Ireland for 5 years, 2010 to 2015. And we were considering, her parents have their Irish citizenship. They've lived there for almost 30 years now.
Yep.
And the process there takes about 5. And the only way that you can become a citizen in Ireland, not the only way, but one of the ways that is sort of the most taken advantage of, I guess you could say, and this is by Americans, American citizens. You go over to Ireland, you get your 90-day visa, you stay on, you apply for a job, and you try to apply for a temporary work visa. And then you're there you can be there for 2 to 3 years on that. You may have to renew every year. It's not fun. It's challenging, but it's not fun. You stand there, a lot of standing in line, a lot of money involved. Then after about 3 to 5 years, you can make your application. You are then, you effectively become a citizen. That's 5 years to go to Ireland as an American citizen. Mexico to the United States is 22 years.
Yeah,
So
for like a sibling. Yeah. And
for someone who is already a citizen and is related.
Yeah.
Correct.
Somebody who's trying to do it the right way, they say, right? The correct way, the legal way. So I asked.
So we do need to make some changes there. We absolutely should.
So when people say, why don't they come over here the legal way? I want to be like, the legal way sucks, you know?
Yeah.
Imagine yourself living in these countries where there's violence or lack of opportunities for you and your children. I mean, I don't know about you, but I love my kid, and I'm going to do whatever it needs to get him to succeed and to be happy and to sometimes maybe get their food. So
we do have the privilege of being born here.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that privilege.
So would I maybe make that trek myself if I lived? Maybe. So it's not just easy.
I myself considered staying in Ireland illegally for one point. I did. I'm not going to lie. And anybody that's ever lived in Ireland understands that. But well, Lorena, is there anything else you want to say to the audience? Anything else you'd like to share, or how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I mean, I would just say, make sure before you just are like, deport them all, or let's come here the legal way, really do your research. And I just gave a glimpse of it. There's so much more. The immigration law is so complex. The immigration process is so complex. It's so broken. And as much as the climate is really anti-immigrant right now, I would ask as Americans to really try to work for a solution, not just a augmentation of the hate that goes on. But yeah, so I'm an immigration attorney here in Tulsa. We have an office here in Tulsa, one in Oklahoma City. But we serve the community all over the country, all over the world, I guess you could say as well.
Yeah, you have offices in several countries.
Well, I employ
partnerships.
Yeah, I employ employees from these other countries, and it's been really good. We've been able to grow thanks to our virtual international staff. But you can find my website, or you Google me, Lorena Rivas, Rivas Associates. There's my website. There's our telephone number, so we can review your case and try to help you out.
That's it. And you can, of course, catch them right off of the Broken Arrow Expressway on their way to downtown at 31st and Yale.
Yeah,
so
the Yale and the BA you can see, and I can wave at you from my window.
You can,
right
yeah,
there.
that's right.
I'm right there in the corner office, so yeah. By all means, come visit us.
Well, thank you for coming to the studio today.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Yeah, this is
right.
really cool. All right.
See you next time.
Yep. Bye.